City of Lowell Planning Board meeting. With the holiday only a few days away, we want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and hope you enjoy yourselves. We have on our agenda tonight one public hearing, a rezoning request for 288 Plain Street, a pre-application center for the Lowell Collegiate Charter School on Middlesex Street. Under old business, we have an administrative review to do on a site plan for a restaurant expansion at 1733 Middlesex Street, and a number of items under our old business to cover. So we'll begin with our public hearing on the rezoning request at 288 Plain Street. Joe, is there any background you want to give us on that?
There isn't a whole lot of background. The petitioner had submitted for the rezone. I believe the intent was to have a dwelling that's either a single or two-family currently. It's a TTF zone. Just bring over the regional retail that currently ends at the VFW parking lot to include his property. There's a garage in the back that has access from Montreal Street. And it would include property for, I believe it would just be a commercial use. I don't think it was a mixed use intent. I think it was just commercial, but I'm not sure.
Okay, we have in our possession a letter from a Tony T., and I'm going to spell the last name, Q-U-A-C-H. I don't want to make a mistake there. That was sent to the city clerk, and I'll just read that into the record. I am the owner of the property at 228 Plain Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. In accordance with the City of Lowell ordinances, I hereby submit a request through your office to the City Council to make an amendment to the current City of Lowell ordinances as follows. Move the line of zoning classifications from VFW 190 Plain Street to the end of property line at 228 Plain Street, which would continue zoning as Regional Retail District, RR. A meters and bounds description of 228 Plain Street is attached as Exhibit A, also enclosed within our abutters list from the City of Lowell relative to the parcel for which a requested move the line change is made herein. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Signed, Tony T. Q-U-A-C-H. Being a public hearing, is there anybody present to speak in favor of this proposal? In favor? In favor. Hearing none, I'll close that portion of the public hearing and open it up to any opposition. Is there anybody here opposed to this rezoning? Yes, sir. Please step to the microphone and state your name and address.
Lou Salt, the president of the Board of Directors for the VFW Post 662. I live at 760 Nashua Road, Dracut. We're in opposition for this home, it used to be a family home, to be as a retail. Several years ago, that place was sold to an individual that owns a business on Montreal Street. He cleaned the whole property, made an illegal, like little alley through it. Now, we understand that he wants to sell the home so they can have a business in there. And the VFW is strongly opposed to the property because our fence line is right there. They've already broken down our fence in one area, so we're strictly in opposition of that area being a business because it's residential area. It's never been a business area.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition?
My name is James Golden. I'm the manager of the VFW on Plain Street in Lowell. I live at 8 Riverside Ave in Dracut, Mass. The end of our property line abuts 228 Plain Street. About a year ago, the people that lived in a house, passed away. They sold it to the fellow that owned the garage on Montreal Street. He went in there, he knocked down all the shrubs. There was between our property and their property, there was a white fence that runs along it. Plus they had miles of bushes all the way across, so it kind of separated us from them. Now there's a road in there. I don't know how they got a road, but they put a road in there. They took everything out. The traffic's bad enough up there as it is now from the Target store. Now they want to put a retail business abutting all those homes. The people on Montreal Street, they got enough cars going up and down Montreal Street now. I keep kicking them out of the parking lot. Every time I go in, I got cars packed in the back of the parking lot. I don't know where they're going to be parking cars for this business, but it's not going to be in our lot. They knocked the section of the fence down already. They've gone through the lot to bring stuff into the home, and we don't want to put up with a business at the end of the parking lot. We've always got along with the neighbors down there. It's been a parking lot, and then it's been residential, and we want to see it stay that way. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition to the project? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Quốc Nguyen. I'm going to have a little bit of an accent here, so I hope everybody can understand me well. I'm the owner of 233 Plain Street, which is almost right across from the property that we're talking about. And I am in total agreement with the VFW in opposing this amendment. And mainly for the main reason is traffic. As I was leaving my house to come here today, there were 2 cars that were parked in front of my house, and then with the 2 cars that were parked on Peyton Street, which is the street that my neighbor Pat lives on. And with all the new businesses, in addition to the Target store, with all the trucks coming in and out of Peyton Street and Plain Street, is bad enough. And there's actually a 2-family at 238 Plain Street. And as a 2-family, they've got like 10 people living in them, and they've got 0 parking. And I'm gonna say something about that property with all the trees, and it used to look a lot nicer. Now they cut down the trees, the bushes. I mean, they opposing because of the parking. Not only is it the parking, it's like, it looks ugly. It's an eyesore right now. And the new owner is not doing anything. And that street is busy enough with the new bridge that they're building, finishing over, the Lowell connector, and with all the new businesses that are coming in to that plaza. It's I don't know. I don't care what kind of business they're gonna open there. It's gonna be, there's gonna be no parking. The only place that people can park is in front of that property, and in front of that property right now has 0 parking whatsoever. And and I've gotten, all my neighbors that I've spoken to, everybody is against it. It's a busy street. It's a residential street. All the houses are right next to each other. We don't have enough parking, and we don't, it's just one more car wouldn't fit into that, little section of the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition to the project proposal?
Hi, my name is Pat Shanahan. I live at 10 Peyton Street, which is directly across from 288 Plain Street. I oppose to this because, again, also for where the cars going to be parking. We have an issue on Peyton Street that when Target became that big mall place, they made the street larger, so the tractor trailers are coming down and buses and everything. I had opposed that. I had called the LRTA at one time, why their buses are always coming down the street where they always went in the main entrance. And I was told by them that Target told them they weren't allowed to go in the regular entrance. So I had to put up with it, because, you know, to me, it's like a roadway now, so if we get something across the street, we're concerned, like, where's everybody gonna park? It looks like it'd be a nice house for a family. All the trees were there, but, you know, everything they took down, they can make that a nice yard and keep it for a family. There's a garage on the other side, and it should be utilized that way, because, like you say, with the VFW, I was told that that's all retail. To me, that's a business. Why did then anybody open up that fence to try to think that they were gonna maybe park there, you know? But like you say, it's just, it's overwhelming. Like you say, there are a couple of houses don't have a park. They have all these people living there, and they're starting to park on our street too. So, and even if they were to make that a business, if you're on Plain Street and they had to turn in, they'd be holding up traffic. Where traffic is backed up on Plain Street, horrendous now. And I know it has to do with some of the bridge work they're doing, but also it does at certain times of day, it just backs up. And if they had to make a turn to go in for business, that would be a total mess there. So I'm opposing to that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nan. Anybody else here to speak in opposition of the proposal? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, I open it up for questions and discussion from the board.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I really wish the
Excuse me.
petitioner was here this evening, because
Yeah. Would help.
inspecting the site and looking at, it appeared to be a fairly natural spot to end the regional retail. So I was looking for some compelling argument as to why you would move that over one lot. And clearly, if you did an existing conditions review, which was done initially, that's a residential property. I did witness or verify what everyone has been saying. It appears that a makeshift road has developed on that site, running from Plain Street to Montreal Street. But as I look at the surrounding area, and noting in the regional retail, if it abuts a residential zone, it's a 15-foot side yard setback, and I don't even think, the existing structure doesn't have that as it sits right now. And obviously with a rezone, even if there's a project specific that somebody has in mind, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. But at this point, we don't know what's even being presented, and what is the reasoning for this board to consider extending the regional retail. And I don't have that before me, and I think there's compelling reason to leave it in the current zoning designation. So that's, Mr. Chairman, that would be how I would vote on that this evening.
Mr. General?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Frechette and what everybody else said here tonight. I feel like this is a lot that abuts a residential home. It's across the street from residential homes. It's on. It's got a back entry on Montreal Street, which is a residential street. Regional retail is one of our most permissive zones. It allows, among other things, drive-through fast food restaurants, which would, might be my guess for what that lot would be targeted for, which means lots of traffic, lots of maybe even lines out onto the street. I just think it's a bad idea to make this lot regional retail. I do want to say also, though, that, you may know this, but this board has no power over zoning. We only make recommendations to the city council, which is the body that handles zoning. So tonight we'll make a recommendation, but they could take it or not. So it's important that you residents show up at the meeting when the city council brings this up. And if there are other residents that are opposed to this, you might want to think about putting a little petition together. If they can't come down to the meeting, and have them sign the petition so that you have greater support for your cause. But I don't see any reason why we'd recommend, I certainly wouldn't want to recommend that this be rezoned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Boyle? Joe?
Extending a regional retail zone one lot over of an existing regional retail building that could be a positive development with a little bit more land added. But what we're looking at here are not those circumstances. This is a very easy decision for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I too feel, I won't go into the details, but that it is a bad idea in this particular case. So I look for a motion from the board. Somebody.
I make a move, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend to the City Council denial of this rezoning petition.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
That's it. We recommended denial.
We recommended denial, yeah,
And keep an eye out for the,
yeah, okay.
Joe, do you know when the, would come before the city council? Is that,
I don't have that offhand to know when it's going to go in for the city council,
you have to
unfortunately.
keep an eye out for, will they get a letter? If it goes before the city council, will they get another letter?
I think the abutter notification was all covered in the one notice that went out, so it should have it on there if it hasn't gone out already. If it doesn't have it on the letter, then an additional letter will go out.
Okay.
We'll wait for Jerry. Yeah, that doesn't wash up there at all.
What's the big attraction then? Tonight,
I think this.
the charter school?
What? I didn't hear
I
you.
think it's the applicant.
Oh. The hearing is over. Meeting started at 6:30, and I'm sorry.
That's right.
I would recommend that what Steve had said about the city council.
So what the status of that the 2A location? You say in the Plain Street, right?
Plain Street, yes.
Yeah, the Plain Street. Yes. So that's my property. I wanna do the retail zone. So I'm so sorry. I come in late, and I didn't hear anything beginning. So.
Our public hearing is we've heard our testimony, and we've recommended a denial.
Oh, they deny. So they.
That's it. We're only making that recommendation
Yeah.
to the city council.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
So you need to go to the city council meeting and make your
And
case.
make your case
For
there.
the rezoning,
Correct.
All right.
okay?
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the pre-application center for a pre-application session for the Lowell Collegiate Charter School at, I won't bother to read all the addresses here, 1857.1 to 1949 Middlesex Street. Before we begin, I'd like to get a show of hands from the audience tonight. Who is here for this project? Three? Yeah, quite a few. Okay. I think, this is a pre-application session, excuse me, where we normally do not allow to hear from individuals and what specific issues they have. But given the fact that you're here And it is an important project for the city of Lowell and important for the planning board to hear all of our testimony. So I will open it up to individuals to testify once we hear your proposal. Excuse me. Go right ahead, sir. Oh, sure.
Chairman Lockhart, board members, George Theolides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here this evening in behalf of the Lowell Collegiate Charter School. The Lowell Collegiate Charter School, in case you haven't heard, is Lowell's third and newest charter school, granted a charter by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a public school in May, given the authorization to find a school, build a school, and operate a school. So once they were granted that charter, they set out to find the perfect location for their charter school to be either constructed, reconstructed, built, or whatever, but to be put together to be made operational. So I'm here this evening with a whole bunch of the people who are involved with this. There are a lot of different groups that are involved in various aspects of it who all have an interest. We think it is and will be interesting to the entire city of Lowell to have the opportunity to have this kind of a new operation and the fine facility. Matt Hammer from Hancock Engineers is here with me too. I just want to make a couple more remarks before I ask him to give you a little outline of what the project entails. First of all, this is a 9-acre parcel of land. I don't know if the board is familiar with it. I have lived in the city my entire life and didn't even know this parcel existed. 9 acres, no less, which are to the rear of the properties in the 1800s on Middlesex Street. And if you drive into this location, which to the far side has as its boundary the railroad tracks that we're all familiar with on Middlesex Street and the Merrimack River, it's like it's unbelievable. It's a wooded area, all separated, all on its own, and currently being used by the Bradford Company, principally for warehousing and with regard to their business. They recently had a light manufacturing kind of business, but that tenant went away, and the building has been little used. And that's good from the standpoint of what the charter school is hoping to do, and Matthew will give you a little more of the information about that. But this is a school that at the outset will house 540 students. It's going to be grades K through 5 to begin with. And as every year progresses, they intend to add another grade, 6, 7, up through high school, right through the graduating high school. The real emphasis, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read any of the materials on this, is to help find another way that Lowell students can get a boost towards a college education. I should add, it will be open to others than Lowell, but the principal people that will be hopefully there and going to school will be Lowellians. I'm not trying to make that bad for our surrounding towns either, but I'm just saying that the focus obviously is we're the center of this particular sphere. In addition to that, I just want to point out that as part of this project, and Matt will show you a little bit more, there'll be some of the property taken down and some of it rebuilt. It will be done in phases, and it's something that we're already starting. We have started to try and deal with the public aspect of this by having a meeting. Nancy is here this evening. As you know, she's been the backbone of the Highlands group for more years than she'd like to tell you. And we had a meeting at St. Margaret's Church last week, well attended, and we had an opportunity to just give them some initial ideas, as I said, about what the project entails. We're obviously here this evening just to give you this initial rundown of what we're hoping to do there. And we have great hopes that this will be open in September of 2013. So there's an awful lot of work to be done in a short period of time. Fortuitously, a good portion of the center of the property will be savable, usable, and build off of, so that'll save some time as well. And there'll be remaining there room for athletic fields as well as the expansion. So I'll be available, as any of the folks are here, to make any comments or answer your questions, but for now I'll turn it over to Matt Hammer from Hancock and ask him to give you the lay of the land, so to speak. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Is there a microphone, or do you want me to speak loud?
Oh, yeah, use one of those on the, that should be adequate.
So to get you familiarized as to where the parcel is located, this is Middlesex Street here. This is the Merrimack River flowing in the easterly direction. And the Wood Street Bridge, Wood Street is here with the work bridge located down in this section of the property. Right now, there is a entrance, a 30-foot right-of-way that comes into the property here, and it's bounded here with an existing 25-foot right-of-way exiting on the westerly portion of the property. Right now, there's an existing industrial building that's comprised of multiple different structures. But the primary structure is a cinder block building, which is shown here. That portion of the existing cinder block building is going to be renovated to facilitate the proposed school. The entrance is 16 foot in width. It'll be a one-way entrance with a sidewalk adjacent to that entrance running the entire way into the property. And that'll be here. There's a parking area here, which is adjacent to a recreation field. Extending through here, there'll be some temporary parking for drop-off and pickup for the school. All the parking will be facilitated in this area here, and no cars will be allowed into this area, which is primarily going to be for bus usage at the drop-off and pickup times for the school. This will be one way in this direction, as well as one way in this direction. Both of these will converge here to the primary drive here, with some additional overflow parking area located in this section here, with a one-way out coming out onto Middlesex Street. We've met with the City of Lowell Planning Department on a number of occasions to reconfigure the parking area here in order to facilitate the one-way exit, and we all have a general consensus of how this is going to be laid out. What we'll do is create a three-way stopped intersection here, so that any traffic exiting the facility will have to stop. Make sure this is clear if there's any queuing to the roadway out at Middlesex, and to allow crossover traffic between the two apartment complexes, which are both currently owned by Bicknell Associates, who own both of these parcels. That parcel is here, as well as here. We've reconfigured the current entrance to this here, which will be a one-way into this property, as well as a one-way into the property here. So both of these apartment complexes will utilize the same exit to exit out of the property. Also, going back into the site now, shown in orange will be the renovated portion of the school. There'll be a fire lane off to the side here, as well as a loading area for unloading materials, supplies, as well as a dumpster area. Also shown here is an isolated wetland area, which is located here. And we'll make sure that we preserve all the water currently directed towards that wetland and treat it to meet all stormwater guidelines. There's also a railroad track that's adjacent, that's lightly used. We've been told that it passes by this area once or twice during the day, but it's not a commuter rail or anything of that nature. It's more freight train usage, and that's located here. And I can answer any questions you have about the general nature of the site.
I neglected to mention, Mr. Chairman and board members, we have hired a traffic engineer to deal with the obvious issue of traffic, which no doubt everyone will have a concern about. They are getting us a report, we hope, by the end of next week, certainly before the public hearing on December 3rd, which we will obviously share immediately with the board. I also neglected to mention, and Joe will confirm this with you, that we've been working for weeks now with members of the DPD to keep them posted of how things are going and how we've been developing this plan, listening to their input. Matt and I met with Aaron and Swathi this past week to just go over some other things. So this is a plan that is evolving and developing. Obviously, we understand that the significant thing that we'll be dealing with is the traffic, bearing in mind, of course, that there'll be school buses that will be playing a large role in the taking and bringing of the children to the school, which I think will diminish the number of private individual cars that we may be dealing with too. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and again, as Matt said and I said before, we'll be glad to answer any questions. We'll be glad to hear from the board for their input and their read of what they see of the plan. We'd like very much to hear that now.
Yeah, I could add one comment to that. We've retained the services of Vanessa and Associates, who's the traffic engineer, who facilitated all the improvement work down at the Wood Street, Middlesex Street intersection. So he's very well aware of the surrounding traffic conditions, is working very closely with Eric Eby, and to date we've met with Eric Eby, the city's traffic engineer, on 4 occasions regarding this entire outline of this project. And I would also say that we know right now that there will be traffic police at the entrance and the exit to this property at all drop-off and pick-up times for the school.
Okay. Normally at this time, we'd open it up for questions from the board, but I think given the number of people that are here that are interested in this issue, I'd like to open it up to the floor for anybody here who would like to speak either in favor or opposition, so we can hear get some feedback from you, and then we will ask our questions to the applicant. Before I do that, I just want to read. This is a pre-application session, and as such, this is not a public hearing. The planning board will render no decision related to the site plan review, nor guarantee any future decision, whether positive or negative, on any project that receives a pre-application review. So there'll be no decision-making here tonight. We just want to hear what's on your mind. So anybody excuse me, who'd like to speak either in favor or against, please go to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mike Hayden. I live at 25 Hadley Street, which is right off Middlesex. First, I want to say I'm not opposed to the school at all. What I'm opposed to is more traffic in the area. We just got saddled with Walgreens. On my street, on Hadley Street, between 2:30 and 6:30, you can't get in or out on Princeton Boulevard or Middlesex Street. And early in the morning, from about 6:45 till maybe 8:30, you can't get in or out. The last thing we need in there is more traffic. And when they say there's going to be mostly buses, my office, when I used to work for the sheriff's office, was down by the old school down on Jackson Street, and 80% of those kids got dropped off every day. So if you're starting with 550 and going up to 1,200 kids, you're talking a lot more cars, a lot more buses. You have buses coming from Greater Lowell Tech, you got them coming from the Lowell schools. You can't move in that area. It's absolutely impossible. We don't need a traffic engineer to tell us that. But that's another thing. I went to the meeting up at St. Margaret's, and they said there was going to be a traffic report. We got a hearing coming up the 3rd, and they still haven't got the traffic report. I mean, I don't think the neighborhood has been well informed in this. There was the one meeting up at St. Margaret's, thank God, but the neighbors can't take any more traffic down there. We just can't take any more. And that train, I hear that train all the time. That goes by maybe 6 or 7 times during the day, not 2 or 3. Because I can hear it, my house shakes. So I would, I can't see this going there. I mean, I'm all for a school, but not in that area. There's too much traffic. Thank you.
Right ahead.
Hi. I'm Steve Beatti. I live at 72 Montview Ave, probably about a half mile from this project as well. One of the things that concerns me is what you see up there is the first phase of what they're going to do there. This is the first phase with 540 students. They don't even tell you what the final building is going to look like or how many people are actually going to be in that school. So as he just pointed out, there's going to be so much traffic coming out of there. We've got a 2-lane Rourke Bridge that carries more traffic than any bridge across the city, but it hasn't even been designed for a new bridge yet. That will choke this area off indefinitely, especially if the traffic has to come across Wood Street. The only other way is to go the other way with the traffic at a minimum, but it's still not sufficient what they have there. I don't think the traffic engineer, I'd like to see what he's going to address. Is he going to look at this school when it's done, the full population, and address how many trips are going to go there? And as he pointed out, it's not just buses. People are going to be driving, it's going to be a mess over there. And as it is, Dingwell's a one-way street. It looks like a go-kart track, the traffic pattern they have around there. On the way out, it goes through 2 apartment buildings. It's very much not refined, and it's really not ready to even be presented, in my opinion. And that's all I have to say, I guess.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak either for or against the project?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Judge, and I co-chair the Highlands Neighborhood Association. I also live at 28 Foss Street, which is off of Middlesex Street. I would like to thank George and all his associates for coming before our meeting last week. I think that the majority of us feel that the most important factor is the traffic. We're not against the charter school itself. Unfortunately, it's the area to which they want to put the charter school. As most of you know, if you've ever used the Rourke Bridge between, peak hours in the morning and peak hours at night, you know what the traffic is like. So I know this is not a public hearing, and if it were, I know that there would be far more people here to speak in opposition. So with that said, please take traffic into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? Right ahead.
My name's Jeff Miller. I live at 10 Loisel Lane, North Chelmsford, and I'm representing Lexi Development that owns 1881 and 1883 Middlesex Street. Not opposed to this at all. I know those gentlemen that own the building. They're fine gentlemen. They probably want to sell out. The only thing I'm opposed to is the entrance and the exit. As this board, as the attorney said, he was never aware of it, like it popped out of nowhere. You guys are all aware of it, except for Mr. Boyle. We had a condominium complex approved here, and because of the length of the driveway and the width, it couldn't be approved. We had 68 feet of frontage. Hancock represented us. We already hired Vanessa. I've already got the okays from the railroad. Nobody's contacted us. We already had an entrance in there. So I think our entrance would have been a lot better than, if you see the back entrance, they're coming out 15 feet. Now, Mr. Linehan isn't here, but on the minutes, I remember him saying to the girl that worked for Hancock, okay, so you got a snowbank on each side. What's that choke the road down to now? Then you got a school bus, because they wanted us to put the buses that come in to the apartments, and we had to put a little bus station in. We had it all approved. Everything that you're seeing here has already been here, and I have no opposition to it. I just think somebody should have contacted us. We already had approvals to get that roadway in. The conservation, we've been through everybody. Traffic studies, a letter from the fire department, a letter from the police department, a letter from Domino's Pizza they could deliver there. We got it all. So I just don't understand it, how this will work when ours couldn't work with 68 feet of frontage. My solution, and it's up, they should contact us, number one, and maybe think about making Dingwell two-way for buses that take pressure off of Middlesex Street. So that's all my take is.
Thank you, sir. Please.
My name is Steve Moses. I live at 1961 Middlesex Street, which is to the left of that diagram. I had notified the city that I have a severe hearing problem, and I was unable to hear what was discussed tonight. I wanted to hear the presentation that was made by the developer because I think specific points were made to the planning board that you're going to consider in terms of approving, not approving, or modifying the project. I would like some way of the city providing somebody who perhaps can help me listen to a tape, because I actually do have a right under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II, to have a person here who would be doing a court reporter. I notified the city clerk's office of that last week, and nothing was done about it. So I would appreciate it if something be done so that I could understand. The presentation was made, as well as apparently comments that were also made. I wasn't aware that comments were going to be taken from the floor.
We did receive that request through the planning department, sir.
I'm unable to hear you.
We did not receive that request in time to accommodate your need tonight. We were informed of your need a half an hour before the meeting, and we did not have time to react to it. Your request is a legitimate one, and we will accommodate your needs.
They'll have it for the meeting. They'll have your meeting.
What else can I do?
I know.
Yeah, we'll take care of your needs if you can speak with them, George, or somebody. Anybody else here to speak for or against?
A couple of quick points, Mr. Chairman. Number one, the fact of the matter is that the the owners of the property subsequent to the development that this gentleman was just talking about acquired the rights for 10 more feet of the land for what I'll call the left-hand side as I'm looking at the property. So that is 25 feet, and the one on the right, the original one, is 30 feet. More than enough for a fire truck, certainly more than enough for buses to come in, and the one-way traffic. That's one of the major reasons why that extra right-of-way was obtained, to make the circular travel easier. And if you look at it, with all due respect to the plan the gentleman was just talking about, which would be a road down the middle there, this is going to help to spread the traffic out and make it a little easier. The other thing I want to point out is we're not talking about Walgreens here or any other retail enterprise. We're talking about a twice-a-day use of the area. And that, I think, is a huge difference in terms of any traffic. And I'm sure the traffic engineers, when they give us the final report, will be able to point that out as well. The last thing in the world we want to do is make this any kind of a divisive thing. Certainly, I and my clients and the people here are willing to talk to anybody about any suggestions they may have, short of buying their property, which is what I think they want done. But, you know, that's another matter for another day, so to speak. But I'm not an engineer, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I don't think that makes or breaks it. I also find it interesting that there was a development proposed for, I think, over 100 condominiums there, and it didn't seem to bother anybody at that time that there were going to be cars and traffic connected with that. So I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the board might have.
Okay. Thank you.
And we thank you for the opportunity, and in 2 weeks we'll have all of the plans. You'll have them before then. Thank you.
Yeah, do that, and then we can, let's do that. He's just gonna get on note, and then we'll follow up on that. I just had to do that. All right, I'd like to open up the, is there anybody else? Okay. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I
The
may.
applicant, Mr. Frechette, please.
Counselor, first of all, for the record, the traffic was a very contentious issue for that development that was before this board.
Sure.
And I believe that we were actually split over that issue, so there was, that was a major concern with that project as well. If Matt could go over, I have a lot of concern regarding that exit with the apartment driveway. As you know, traffic takes the path of least resistance, and just about every school in the city of Lowell, and I was a parent that drove my own children to school. The fact of the matter is, there's more parents today driving their children to school than ever before. That's just a fact.
Yeah,
So, any public school in the city of Lowell, it is what it is. So, I invite you to go sit at any school, and we had Lowell Catholic come before us, and I sat in front of that school many times for items coming before us, and it was just amazing the amount of people dropping off their children. Public schools the same way, and I dropped my children off at Lowell High School. It's amazing how many parents drop their children off there. So taking that into account, my concern, if there's any queuing too, I can see people trying to go through the parking lots of the apartments. I don't know if I misunderstood, it sounds like that road that's exiting the apartment parking lot, it actually goes through there and is actually access to other exits through the apartments circulation. Is that correct? On the left?
Yeah.
That's correct. The apartment complexes will be able to exit out of their facility and enter into this one-way exit egress from the property. And the nice thing about the way that this site is set up is that we have a long distance coming into the school itself. So we're able to get the vehicles off the road into the site.
No, I can appreciate that. I'm concerned about the exit.
And in the same respect, it's going to be the same way leaving as well. We have this entire queuing area extending all the way back to the school, necessary, if needed, for vehicles to exit out of the site.
What I'm trying to understand is, you said a three-way, this looks like it's open to both sides of the apartment. So will there be no exit from the apartment?
That's correct.
Driveways? So
correct.
The only way the apartments can exit onto Middlesex then will be through this road?
That's correct.
Interesting, okay. So those will be one-way entrances into the apartments?
Yep.
But you will have a two-way drive if I look to the far left, you'll have, what I'm trying to see is I see two arrows as if it's two ways,
There'll be two-way within the circulation within the parking areas,
okay?
and there'll be only one way to exit out of the facilities. And mind you, we will be having a traffic.
And if I could just point out again, twice a day, and if there are times when people are trying to come out of those apartment parking spaces and parking lot, they're actually going to be in a better position with a traffic policeman there helping them come in and out of the parking area than they would be if they were fighting on their own, I think.
But what I'm concerned is, to be honest with you, parents dropping off their children, not wanting to wait in the queue, and then turning into these parking lots and then trying to exit other egresses. So that's my biggest
Yeah,
concern.
and we'll have to
looking at
put
that.
some, and when the traffic engineer comes back with the report, I'm sure there'll be some specific verbiage for the signage. Identifies these as private properties, as well as signage here that they're to continue out through the exit. There'll also be signage within this parking area in this location, do not enter, as well as other points here that will not allow, or specifically by signage, not allow anyone from exiting through the apartment complex.
Right, and obviously, this pre-application to get our concerns, you know, that's certainly a concern I have looking at this.
That's why we're here.
I can say that we had two meetings with the traffic engineer in the Development Services Department and our traffic engineer in order to come up with a circulation pattern within the site that generally sufficed everybody's circulation needs, and then we went forward with going to the next step, which was the full design.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to getting the results of the traffic study. When and if you file your application to get the report from the fire department, obviously those are crucial relative to the site and circulation. So that's at this time, that's obviously my biggest concern looking at this site at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, you got a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have any other questions. You know, given that this is a pre-application session, I think the intent is to inform us of something that's coming so that we can be better prepared to analyze the data at that time. I do see on this sheet that you gave us the multiple phases of your development. Looks like you have, you're going to go all the way through high school at some point. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I have this, another color-coded plan here as well, which I can go over with you. This here is the proposed K through 5, of which this building can also facilitate upwards to K through 8 as well. And this here, shown in yellow, would allow for a future expansion to the high school stage, as well as accommodating for the parking needs for that as well. So we're incorporating through the entire site design what could be the potential future development, as well as, and this is probably a little hard to see on the copy that you have, but even a two-story gymnasium. This would be 2 stories here, as well as a primary 2-story high school area. One of the design aspects that's critical in this type of development is to have a transitional area between the high school use as well as the K through 5 students, and having the gymnasium as well as what they call a multi-use room, which facilitates eating, light assembly, and plays and whatnot within these multi-purpose rooms to have those separated, and that's all been incorporated in this design.
So in the final, development, final stage of this development, how many students in all do you think you could accommodate?
Right now, we're being told that the K through 5 will be 540 students, and if you get through to the high school stage, it'll be 1,200 students.
1,200, no,
Yeah.
okay.
It's approximately, a gauge is 100 or sometimes a little less on average per grade.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yep.
I'm trying to get my head around that number 1,200. Do you know, or Joe, maybe you know, what school is that comparable to in the city? 1,200? Lowell High School is 4,000. How about the middle schools, like the Robinson, do you know?
Not even close to the footprint.
All right, so this is a considerably larger student population, larger facility than any of the city's middle schools? Would that be right?
I think that's true in its,
Yeah.
in its final
Accurate. Do you have numbers?
implementation.
I'm not sure.
It would-
Or it's being designed for a certain,
Yeah, I think that's,
500.
yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
It would
We could-
probably
we
be
could
larger
obtain
than
a
any.
census of all the school systems within Lowell fairly easily.
Excuse me.
Okay. The wetland, how is that fed? Is there an outlet? Is there a channel?
No, there isn't, actually. It's a isolated land subject to flooding. It's confined by an elevation, which is elevation 42, which extends approximately like this around the edge of that vegetative wetland. So we'll make sure that we meet all the performance requirements for that storage of that isolated land subject to flooding. And we're also even allowing for even more elevation above it to make sure that the site's not going to get inundated by any flow extending beyond that vegetative wetland. What I can tell you is that this entire apartment complex here, for the most part, drains into the site, and has basically created that, I guess you'd call it a retention basin. Even though it is an isolated land subject to flooding, which is a resource area by Mass DEP. And then what happens is there's a large berm here that comes up along here, which separates the Merrimack River from the site as well.
So you're saying most of the water there is coming off of impervious surface from the buildings and driveways in front of it?
That's correct.
Okay. Compared to existing conditions, are you adding impervious surface on the Bradford Industry site, keeping it the same, decreasing?
There's going to be a net decrease.
A net decrease in impervious surface on your
Yes.
site?
This is, you can see it on the existing building extends all the way over to here. And the edge of the whole parking area is right along here and wraps up around. But what I can say is we're going to incorporate porous pavement on this project. And that's going to be in all the primary parking areas. And then we'll maintain a bituminous pavement along the primary drive, utilizing subsurface infiltration systems and drainage swales.
Okay. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Joe. There are a couple of things. We have the dumpster in the loading area, right in the very front of the building. I would encourage you to relocate that. It seems like,
Yeah, that's
you
been.
know, I know you can say, well, we do that at night and it won't bother anybody during the day, but it's kind of a busy place.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have you got a large school here, you're gonna have a very active area. And I just don't think it's any place for a dumpster.
Yeah, that's been it's good that you mentioned that. It's been a primary concern of ours, and we wanted to make sure that we located the dumpster area in a location that was going to incorporate any future development of the property. And that loading area, we wanted to have a 4-foot differential for the loading. Now, the K through 5, apparently they bring, most of the time, they bring their food in from an outside source, they bring it in, and then they have warming stations, and then they feed the students in that manner. It's not typical of a full cafeteria. But this does drop down, and the grade is 4 feet lower than it is over in this section of the building. And we're gonna be proposing some vegetation so you visually will not see it as you come into the school system. But you would see it if you were down here, obviously. But this became one of the focal points of positioning that in a manner because I can't get to the rear of the building because of the confines of the railroad tracks and the river. So I either have to come in through the sides or somewhere in the front, and we figured at an elevation 4 feet below that this was a good location, and we could provide some screening techniques in order to have it not visually detract from the building.
Well, that's,
And we needed to have it in an area where the food service and everything related to that would be located, which happens to be typically in the middle of a school.
okay, the other thing that concerns me is access by emergency vehicles. Have you had any preliminary talks with the fire department?
We have not yet, but
Is it possible that they might want an access road all the way around the building? I mean, you're gonna fight a fire by the railroad tracks there, how are you gonna do it effectively? Is that a possibility?
it's a possibility.
So that's gonna change your site.
It's gonna significantly change the site.
Right.
In a big way. What I can say is that there's a railroad spur that's shown on this plan, which actually is not in use right now. And then the primary railroad is up here. But what I can say is there's a long loading bay, dock, that's, I believe, 10 feet in width. So we're gonna have an evacuation plan in order to safely evacuate any students out the rear of this large platform area.
That type of thing.
And then that can come down to here, which we're showing as this paved fire lane on this side of the building.
All right, you really can't see that in the print we have.
So there's a paved fire lane here.
See that. Okay.
And then there's also gonna be a 20-foot wide fire lane in the rear of the building located here.
I was looking at that. Is that supposed to be white on the plan? That's
This,
that.
we didn't want to confuse the drawing too much, but what is white is what this permit site plan is addressing, which is the site in this building. This area in here is just underlaid underneath what would be accommodated for phase 2, which would be the high school. We didn't want to put that white to show that it was part of the first phase of this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and,
I also wanted to mention, Mr. Lockhart, that the current owners of the property, Bradford, have 18-wheelers going in and out of that property all the time. So we've been told the fact that it's 30 feet wide and one way shouldn't be a problem or an issue for fire trucks and things like that. But obviously, we'll wait for the definitive report from the fire
How about
department.
a school here with a lot of kids, and, you know, it's a different animal than an industrial building. The third thing, obviously, is the traffic. That's a big issue. And I'm drawn to the exit over here where the other apartment buildings are, and just looking at it and kind of feeling what you talked about, creating a very busy area there, and I'd like to see some comments from the traffic engineer
That'll all
about
be
that
addressed. Yep,
specifically.
absolutely.
The other side doesn't bother me that much, but
But what I can say is that there will be traffic police officers here, there'll be traffic guards, as well as the school provides faculty that addresses the drop-off areas, as well as bringing students there'll be someone from the school also at the entrance to facilitate any students walking into the facility along the sidewalks.
okay.
I'm sorry, what I also should have mentioned was one of the other things, and it'll of course come with the traffic engineer's report, that's being talked about as a possibility is a staggered starting and ending time, so that we can help deal with that particular issue.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. go ahead.
I wanted to make one comment. While I appreciate the applicant's desire not to confuse us, I would like to make sure that when this comes back before us, that we are presented with a plan for the project at build-out, at complete build-out, that we're not considering the traffic impacts from half of what will eventually be built there.
Yeah, no, we are,
full,
everything being submitted, whether it be site plans, conservation, traffic reports, anything regarding this facility is assuming that we're gonna be going full to high school.
Okay.
In terms of all the grading, all the drainage, everything's being incorporated into these plans. Because we're not gonna be changing this primary access drive or the parking areas when they come before us with a new, these extensions off of the building. That's why it was so important to nail this all down before we came in with this proposal.
Agreed.
Hey, is this scheduled for public hearing already?
It is December 3rd.
With us?
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Joe, is that a special permit?
It's site plan review. We'll have to do some additional review to see if a special permit is needed for the driveway length. Something we have to look at, but for right now, it's just
That
site
too,
plan review.
The length, yeah.
Do we know if Mr. Lenahan's going to be back by then, or?
He hasn't indicated that he won't be back for this third meeting, so
I
at this
guess
point,
that he would
do
be
expect him back.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have any additional comments?
We thank you very much.
Thank you
Okay.
for your presentation.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, moving along on our agenda, item 4 on the old business, we have 1733 Middlesex Street, administrative review of the site plan. That was, I guess, at the last meeting that I missed. Okay, Joe, you want to start us off here?
Sure, so the site plan was presented to the board. It was to, basically the end result of a number of conditions that were placed on the project when it was approved. Number of things to note, the landscape plan was worked on with the design planner as well as the applicant. The parking area was taken back a little bit from the soccer field, so it increased that green space back there as well, and did so without losing any parking spaces on the site. And it also helped the willow tree be preserved in the back, as was a condition of the board. And the dumpster was relocated towards the center of the building, which the traffic engineer looked at and felt that was an appropriate location for it. So I didn't know if there was any other comments from the board based on the revised plan.
Anybody have anything?
Yeah, Joe, the string of parking spots there on the, I guess that was, well, the right-hand side of the graph that we have here. I always get myself in trouble when I try to give directions. But it looks like a very long string of parking there, and I know our city ordinance requires, that be broken up by landscape islands along the way. I'm wondering why that wasn't incorporated here.
I'm not sure. That was the design planner and the applicant who went over that plan.
City design planner?
Yep. So I'm not sure why that wasn't broken up any, but that's what was come down to.
I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think a parking lot that abides by the code that's in the zoning code, and has those landscape islands to break up the asphalt looks so much better than one that's just, a sheet of asphalt. I'd really like to see some of those added to this plan.
Yeah, this is obviously lacking vegetation. I'm just looking at
Even if they wanted to, there's a lot of stormwater management area back here. I don't know if they're restricted from parking in that area, but even if they wanted to extend a little bit in the back of the site, so that they could pick up a few more parking spots, because obviously they'd have to give up some parking to put some landscape islands in there. But that's the thing that jumps out at me, is we have this big area with no landscaping at all, and I think it's not going to be very attractive.
I just, commenting on that yeah, I'd like to at least get some background as to how this was determined. This is what I will say, going out there, and I can remember the discussion we had initially, because if you remember, this original proposal had parking in front of the building.
Yeah.
And the applicant, I mean, that was just awful. And the applicant was willing to take a look at removing that. And, taking a ride out there, yesterday I was out there, and it really is amazing the amount of green space that we were able to get on Edward Street and around in front of the building that never existed there before with the trees. It actually, that looks nice, yeah. So, and I know this section here is on the internal part of the driveway with the other strip mall running alongside here. I agree with Mr. Jenner. What I would like for the next meeting, if we put in the form of a motion, at the very least get an explanation as to what the rationale was, and whether or not any landscape islands could be incorporated into this design. Having said that, again, this site actually looked, I mean, when you consider what this looked like before, it really looked very nice. And the granite curbing was there on site, and really dresses up that particular lot. But I would put it in the form of a motion that rather than approve what's been presented here, at least get further explanation regarding why there are no landscape islands and if they could be incorporated into this design.
I'll second that motion, I think, yeah. In fact, I don't want to amend your motion, but I would just go so far as to say we should require what's, prescribed to that type of
I will second.
parking lot. We shouldn't vary from it. It's coming out nice over there. We don't want to jeopardize that.
I will second Mr. Lockhart's motion to amend the motion.
All right, if you want to amend it, that's fine with me.
And I have no problem with that.
I just feel strongly about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I hear what you're saying. It does look nicer, but I don't think that should be a reason for us to vary from our standards there. I know it makes it harder to plow. That's always the concern. It makes it harder to plow, but, life's tough.
Right.
So the plow's going to have to make another pass. I think a couple landscape islands there would be easy to do. It'd make it look a lot better, and I think it's something we should strive for.
It would provide the opportunity to plant more large canopy shade trees to cover the pavement.
There you go. Okay, what else? Anything else?
You done with that?
Yeah, unless there's,
We have a motion, should we vote on them?
Yeah, we didn't vote on that motion.
oh, all right, the promotion.
With the motion, we had the second, right? So,
Yeah, we did, so,
And then it was amended.
all in favor?
aye.
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 Okay.
Vote is 4-0, right, John? Yeah, it's in favor.
Mr. Chairman, are we to other business?
We are at other business, and I know you have a
Yeah, I had I know some folks from the Belvedere group are down here tonight. I had distributed to all of you prior to the meeting a copy of a petition that was circulated by the group. And the gist of the petition is to extend the existing traditional mixed-use zone that is at the intersection of Roger Street and Berkeley Ave, eastward along Roger Street to the intersection of Rogers and Phoenix Ave. And along with your petition, you'll find a map there that pretty clearly shows what the intent is, I think, of the petition. And that is, you see there's already an existing TMU zone that goes from Berkeley Ave westward down Rogers Street. And then, of course, there's the regional retail zone where the supermarkets are and the car dealers are down on the other end of Roger Street. Then there's this sort of transitionary zone here. Now this, as you may recall, there was another matter before us where this was discussed.
Yeah, right in here.
And this has kind of gone to, so the group has just taken it to the next level. And I think the letter explaining the petition calls out definitions that are in our zoning code for retail and traditional mixed use zones. I think that the retail districts, it says right in our zoning code, promote the development of businesses that draw their markets from citywide and regional service areas. So the business that, they're zones that we intend to attract folks from regional, beyond the city, beyond the neighborhood. And the traditional mixed use is more of a neighborhood style business. Now, I think probably this zone doesn't fit perfectly into anything that we have, but I think the neighborhood was looking to, you can see from the map how close the residential lots are to this section. It's a very densely populated area right along that section of Rogers Street, very close to the business area there, and a regional retail. I mean, I think I agree with them. I think a regional retail zone for that particular section doesn't really fit. And if you look further down, where the extension of the major regional retail district is, you'll see there's all kinds of buffers, around that zone, buffering the residential neighborhood from the regional retail. So it's an appropriate regional retail zone. It's close to the highway as well.
Yeah, it's buffers.
So I think it's a very, I think it's a key thoroughfare in the city. I think that it's a gateway for sure, and it's very, the state of that particular section of Rogers Street is really important, I think, to the entire Belvedere neighborhood, because I think that making sure it stays in sort of a neighborhood business kind of mode is going to keep the neighborhood the way I think we want it. And I think there's some folks here to speak, Mr. Chairman, if you want to let them do that.
Absolutely, sure. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Celine Lehman. I live at 213 Parkview Ave, and I just wanted to come in support of the petition. We're looking to have businesses that draw us there, not keep us away from the Rogers Street, and try to keep reasonable traffic patterns. In that section, people are coming from the Belvedere area into places like Shed Park, and there's a lot of traffic. A lot of people in Belvedere now sort of head the other direction, and I think trying to improve what businesses and not actually degrade the businesses that are there would be a very positive thing for the Belvedere neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Steve Hatton. I am the organizer of the Belvedere Neighborhood Group, and I'm in full favor of this motion. I just want to say that it has been brought, through the neighborhood group. The attention came with the Taco Bell wanting to go in there, and there was a lot of resistance. I do not live in the Rogers Street area, but all of the people that surround me knew about it. There's over 120 people on our mailing list. We sent out numerous notices asking for any feedback on the issue, and everyone that responded was in full support of it as a means of keeping the neighborhood friendly. I live 3 houses in from Andover Street, and I just know in the summer nights the motorcycles going up and down there, you can hear them, and I'd be horrified if there was going to be a restaurant that could be open till 4 in the morning, where these guys could park and hang out and do in such close proximity to the homes, has been pointed out. I mean, so I have a lot of empathy for the people in that area, and I think it's a beautiful neighborhood. People take a lot of care and pride in their homes, and I just think it should be. It's not like any of those stores there are vacant. It's a vibrant area as it is, and they want us to keep the feel and the atmosphere the way it is, and not have it develop into something that's loud and busy. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, I'm Richard Coffey. I live at 331 Parkview Avenue, and I'm in favor of this rezoning. I think it would be much more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood If you notice on Rogers Street, for instance, the wide part of Rogers Street, extending from the highway into the city, stops at Phoenix Avenue. And at that point becomes more of the residential width. If you look at where the houses are in terms of the regional retail and in terms of the other facilities in the area, extending regional retail businesses into that is a real incursion into the middle of a basically residential on both sides of Rogers Street. I think this would enhance the neighborhood and be a good thing for all of us.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Dillingham. I live at 154 Parkview Ave. I, too, am in favor of the rezoning. I think, as was just mentioned, the section that we're looking to rezone is where it really goes down to one lane, more of a local traffic. I know just from my own daily commuting, you've got the stadium on one end and you've got Shed Park on the other. You see kids walking back and forth. It's a situation where I think we would really prefer to have more of a local traffic as far as the timing that people are, the times that businesses are open, the level of traffic, and just have more of a neighborhood support system there where it's the type of businesses that are supporting the neighborhood that's right there. We live, it's not right on Rogers Street, but it's close enough that any kind of significant change in the traffic pattern and hours of business will significantly impact our neighborhood. So I think it's much more in line with the actual reality of the neighborhood and in maintaining it that way, which I think is actually quite key to keeping the city vibrant and active. And I think that neighborhood does a lot in that way. Thanks.
Nobody else? What is your next step in this?
Well, that's a good question. I think I had spoken
gotta
to Aaron, and Aaron, when the folks approached me about their next step, he suggested that we, as a planning board, could recommend to the planning department that the proper ordinance or paperwork be drawn to officially rezone this, because a public hearing has to be held, right?
Yeah.
Both here at the planning board for recommendation and then at the city council for actually zoning change. And that would require notification and that sort of thing. So, Joe, I guess I'm asking you, I think if we were to make a motion directing the planning department to move forward with this rezoning request, is that something that would be appropriate?
There are a couple different options. One could be that the neighborhood group as an entity could petition the city council, just as any other citizen does when they're looking to rezone their property, at which point it would go through the kind of typical process where we get referred to law and they would draft up the vote, which would then get referred to the planning board for recommendation and then back to the city council for an action upon that. Another option would be the planning board could petition the council. It would probably be more so in line of developing a motion or I guess petition where you're addressing kind of key points in the master plan about how the rezone would be doing that. So it would be more from that perspective in terms of what you were lining up in the motion or
right.
In the
So
petition.
I think that we want to do the latter.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation, and I think this cover sheet here actually does make reference to the master plan. Section 3.1.1 of the master plan says the unique character, these are, for the request to rezone is consistent with the following recommendations and action steps outlined in section 3.1 of the City of Lowell Comprehensive Master Plan. 3.1.1 says the unique character of each Lowell's neighborhood should be preserved and enhanced. And the action listed under that step is that to rezone areas in which present zoning promotes uses that are not compatible with existing neighborhood character. I think this fits perfectly into that category. There's a couple of other things called out here as well, but that, to me, that's the one that I think the businesses that are there fit pretty well into the neighborhood character now, but the regional retail district doesn't. And I think that that what is permitted under the regional retail district would go beyond, would not be in tune with preserving neighborhood character there. So, I mean, I would make the motion that we petition the city council to move forward on this rezoning request.
I would like to discuss this a little more before going forward like that. I would, the observation that it would be undesirable to have the subject area developed in style consistent with regional retail. Even if we were comfortable drawing that conclusion right now, there are considerations we should take into account in addition. There are considerations we should take into account in addition to the neighborhood considerations. There is also the economic development considerations for the city. I would want to hear from DPD staff about all of the different points of view from which we would need to look at this. In addition, there is the traditional mixed-use zoning district in our zoning. There is also the NBD district, the neighborhood business district. I would want to look very closely at, if we were to rezone, whether the TMU or the NBD would be the appropriate one to rezone to. It's clear and it's quite reasonable from the neighborhood's perspective to think in terms of there's a TMU district, we should expand that. And in terms of making this little area, the subject area, more of a neighborhood area, commercial area than a citywide drawing regional retail area. The TMU district allows multifamily uses, multifamily residential uses by right, and retail uses by special permit, if I'm remembering correctly.
Not in every case.
Whereas the NBD district generally allows retail uses by right and makes multifamily residential a special permit. The question about whether this should be seen more as a retail area that might have some residential in it, or a residential area that might have some retail in it, needs more thought. I would like to have I think that the move we should make here is to request a staff report from DPD to report on existing land use, implications of existing zoning, the economic development issues here, the neighborhood character issues, and and the implications of leaving it as regional retail as one option, rezoning to NBD, rezoning to TMU, and other options as if they find any, which would address the issue of planning for this to be more of a neighborhood retail district than a regional retail district. That's my recommendations. What we should do now is ask for a staff report.
I don't think, first of all, I'm really in favor of what you're doing here. I think it's an important corridor with a nice neighbor. You get an interesting combination of business and neighborhood. We've got to pay attention to how that's developed into the future. I think the best way to do that, whether it's TMU or the neighborhood or whatever, I think that decision probably should come from the Department of Planning and Development. If we could see a recommendation at some point as to what they think is right. And you had suggested that we go right to the city council with a a recommendation or a petition, Steve?
So
Is
Joe
that-
gave me two options, and I chose the one that seemed most desirable.
All right, I'm not opposed to that either, but I think to help facilitate the whole process, that the neighborhood group should be brought into this, so that the city council people understand that the neighborhood group is behind this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think we'd have more strength and more of an opportunity to really improve the situation, that's all.
Are any of the neighborhood people here, were you involved in the drafting of this?
Yeah, see,
okay.
they're involved, so we got.
Did you look at the issue of TMU versus NBD?
So I've been kind of acting as a point person
Okay.
for these guys. If Steve, if you want to respond, this hasn't been absent contribution from the planning department. Aaron advised the group to some extent on what to do here, and the TMU seemed like an appropriate thing to do because it was an extension of existing zone as opposed to what could be construed as a spot zone by introducing a new zone into the mix. So that was, I think, the primary reason, as I recall. Steve, if you want to add to that.
No, it just seemed like the logical thing to ask for, just to have things done.
To the extent it's, our preference, I think, is significantly to have it be a residential area with some business, not a business area with some residents, or however you describe that choice.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Had you discussed the desirability of multifamily residential or of mixed storefronts with multifamily residential above?
So I'm aware of, there's an apartment building right on Roger Street. There's at least one. And a lot of the businesses there are in like houses that have been.
Yes,
yeah.
Converted houses.
Yep, converted houses. There may be people living in apartments in those as well, which it seems fine. I mean, so, there's law firms, there's a dentist office, a bank, things that you would, like, it's great to be able to walk to the dentist, to be honest. And the same for the, attorney. I mean, that stuff our neighborhood uses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else is along there, but there's a Jiffy Lube, yeah. So, yeah, I think, right, the neighborhood convenience store.
See, that's a very heartening comment, an interesting comment. It's not that you're opposed to commercial development, and you recognize that having certain commercial uses within walking distance contributes to the quality of life in your neighborhood. For the last 2 months in a row, we've had people coming in wanting to rezone, to shrink the city's commercial property, commercially zoned property list and build residential on top of it instead. Rezoning to something that allows residential by right rather than special permit could potentially hold the threat of degrading the quality of life in your neighborhood by converting those valued commercial retail uses into residential uses. This is the type of thing that these are the reasons why I'd really like a staff report to look closely at this. To look at, and when I say to look at both the neighborhood quality of life and the economic development issues here, and also along the lines of what you were just talking about, looking at where those things overlap. Economic development can contribute to neighborhood quality of life, and we don't want that to be imposed on. I don't want to go too fast, and I want to make a precise decision. The issue of spot zoning. The legal standard for spot zoning is not actually geographic. The legal standard for spot zoning is zoning inconsistent or without a plan, without a planning process, and without a planning justification. It is entirely possible to find a planning to decide that the city's plan, the values articulated in the comprehensive plan, recommend creating a little isolated zoning district. Look at our neighborhoods. Look at the Lower Highlands. We have little isolated retail zoning districts scattered throughout the Lower Highlands. And it is not spot zoning, it is the plan. And it would be perfectly legitimate for the city to decide that its plan is to have a little, what did I say, neighborhood business district as almost a stepping down from the regional retail, then the neighborhood business, then the TMU, then it's right into pure residential.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, you know, this is a similar corridor to Bridge Street, and we dealt with actually Bridge Street phases from regional retail, TMU, neighborhood business district. It actually incorporates, I believe, all three. I think Joe has a good point. If it's going to come out of the planning board, we should be the most informed body in the city is to give in kind of a recommendation. So I think I applaud everyone for being proactive on this. This is how I got to where I am now. I wasn't happy with something going on in the neighborhood, and I became involved. And
Don't scare them away.
But no, I think that I think there's a lot of value to following up. You know, you had a development out there. We've had several developments. I know Steve has certainly expressed concern of how that's zoned, and the lack of a transition. Usually from regional retail, we have more of a transition going into the residential portion, and this is really kind of a, you know, it cuts right off. So I would agree with Joe. I think it certainly can come out of the planning board, but I think we should have a recommendation from DPD, and which is prompted from your petition. Obviously, there is a need to rezone that particular slice of Roger Street. I think everybody agrees that should not be regional retail. It just shouldn't. When you look at that and when you look at what's surrounding that area, there has to be a transition. Now, whether the transition is TMU or whether it's neighborhood business district, I think that needs to really be looked at. So I, for one, would be in support of. That's what I would be looking for, is a recommendation from, you know, and DPD may come back and say it should be regional retail, but I think it's you know, looking at it, a cursory look even, and we've wrestled with the challenges of that particular strip of road with other projects that have come before us. And I think that would be, I would be in agreement with asking for DPD for an analysis regarding the recommendation for the appropriateness of the current zoning and a recommendation of what would be appropriate. And if you've worked with Aaron, I suspect the recommendation coming out of DPD may be exactly what you've put forward here, but at least it would be something that the planning board would have from DPT regarding an analysis. I think it would be important to get their input on it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of the importance of getting input, has anybody spoken to the commercial property owners? Were they involved in this process at all?
Yeah, business owners. Yeah, they got it.
At some point in the planning process of rezoning a commercial district, we need to find out what the businesses think. Even if ultimately we come down on the other side, we need to know what they think. In terms of this staff report, as opposed to just a recommendation, I'd like options. I'd like different scenarios and reports on the implications of those different scenarios.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think what everybody's saying here makes sense. It's good to have Joe, who's got a lot of experience with zoning and the laws behind, as in your prior work with the city. So I think what everybody's saying makes sense. I think the report is a good idea. I think that Aaron actually brought up the idea of an additional zone, a new zone, a transitionary zone that might fit better than either TMU or NB. But I think the thought process of the neighborhood group was, and not to put words in their mouth, was that, you know, maybe we could make it a two-step process. You know, the TMU kind of provides some level of protection for the neighborhood, and then maybe in the next step, a new zone that is you know, more appropriate for that particular area. So I think they're concerned about, you know, development happening there. They don't want to get stuck in the spot that they were in previously. And so I think that was kind of the thought process. But as long as the report can be turned around relatively quickly, I think that, it probably makes good sense to get some analysis that goes on there.
You know, we had a similar discussion to this a decade ago. We actually trooped out the whole planning office to this location because this is a bit of an odd duck location. It's, you don't find this a lot. First of all, it's surrounded by suburban single family. Suburban, okay? Suburban residential districts don't commonly have a walkable commercial center. They're suburban. And yet we've got that here, and actually that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful asset. And yet it was also adjacent to a regional retail. The talk about the stepping down, we originally drew this TMU district for that purpose of having a stepping down between the neighborhood and the regional retail. And, what Aaron, it's very insightful, that maybe we need a new district, because this area in here, it is neither fish nor fowl. It really is. I brought up neighborhood business district because it seems to be something in between. And that's another thing. It's a suburban single-family district surrounding it. There is, however, multifamily, some multifamily within it, and it seemed to work. It seemed to go together well. So yeah, this does require, all right, I'm gonna cut myself short. This requires some close planning looks, because it's it's, depending on which side of the coin you look at, it's either a thorny problem or a very interesting opportunity.
And just to complicate it, there's also light industry zone right off of this as well.
Yep.
which
There is, right off Phoenix Ave. I mean, it's.
Yeah, which is really, you really got a lot converging right there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think, Joe, it would be appropriate if we carried this on our agenda, and I guess look forward to a report from.
So do we need a motion? You want to make the motion, Joe, since you?
I make a motion that we request a staff report on the feasibility of rezoning the subject property, considering the economic development and neighborhood quality of life implications of rezoning from regional retail, and providing the board with various options and the implications of each one.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I do want to point out how well-behaved these two children are over here in the
Yeah,
corner.
I noticed
They're welcome to come to our meeting anytime.
So that's 4 in favor, none opposed. We'll, I guess, hear from DPD, Joe, at some point in the future soon.
Yeah, maybe not the next meeting, but
No,
hopefully
whenever.
a couple meetings down the road, we can provide something to the board for their review. In terms of the next meeting, the only thing on the agenda at this point is the charter school. So there's really nothing else on the agenda at this point.
Okay, I have a couple of fairly quick items. Tanner Street Redevelopment Committee is meeting on the 27th. It's been a couple, 3 months since we've convened a meeting to go over the progress that the consulting firms have made. And then on the 29th of this month, which is that Thursday, the final public hearing on that project will be held at the LRTA maintenance station. So I'll report on that at our next meeting. The other item is we have a meeting scheduled in our packet. I propose that we review this, and then when Tom returns, we can kind of go over it and see if there's any conflicts or any changes we want to make.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment on it? A lot of times when we have a holiday in a month or something like that, we push our meetings to Thursday meetings. Personally, for me, that tends to be more inconvenient, the Thursday meetings. I was wondering
Yeah,
why.
me too.
I was wondering why it wouldn't make sense to just skip a week and go to the, instead of going to the first and third Monday, go to the second and fourth Monday in a month, rather than, going Thursday in a given month.
The issue with that is that the zoning board meets the second and fourth Monday.
Oh, yeah.
of it. Wednesdays, second and fourth, you have Conservation Commission, and first and third is School Committee. And then the council is on Tuesdays, so
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Maybe we could look
Thursday
at
or
those
Friday, it could be
months.
Friday.
Maybe we could look at those months and try to work out something.
Yeah, just a thought. I mean, keeping them on Monday nights, it tends to be a little more convenient for me personally. It's not a big deal, but
I've experienced the same thing.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It'd
Sure, yeah.
be worthwhile.
I was perfectly comfortable in the other room at the last meeting. Is
Yeah, I mean, we
is
don't
there
have to be-
a reason why we couldn't meet in here while this
because
we
we'll
couldn't meet-
disappoint our fans out there on TV,
televised,
Joe.
so-
Everybody tunes in on Monday nights to watch us.
The issue is more is with the holidays where it's off, where it gets pushed to Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Joe. The other room is fine. The only issue is we
Yeah.
can't be televised.
Right.
Right.
That would certainly be okay with me if we were to keep it on a Monday night and go to the mayor's reception room a couple times a year.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yeah,
Just
please.
a couple of things. I just passed out at the beginning of the meeting,
yeah,
just for everybody,
right,
and
the
Joe, I don't know if you were
forum.
here, but the information
He'd be
that,
interested.
relative to the porous asphalt, and I know on the charter school, they indicated they were gonna use that. This is just really a cheat sheet, looking at disadvantages and advantages, and then there's an article from UNH, and again, they've been on the cutting edge of this technology, so, and there's other websites here for additional resources, but I know it's, we've asked for additional information, and this is something I've had for a couple of years. We find it helpful. And then just another thing, Mr. Chairman, relative to announcements, there was another meeting of the Rourke Bridge study, so obviously, that has a lot to do with the development in that area, and so this was the next phase to introduce some possible alternative sites for the bridge, or locations, and that was well attended. There was, I want to say there's probably somewhere around 30 people at the meeting, 30 to 40 people at the meeting. And, they're moving on to the next phase. But at this point, it was really to introduce whether or not, and they're talking about a 4-lane bridge at this point, whether or not it would be at the same location, whether they would align it with Old Ferry Road, whether or not they would move it upstream or downstream. And there's even a proposal to hook it up with Vinyl Square, an access road with Vinyl Square in Chelmsford, full with all kinds of issues and wetlands crossings and other issues on the Chelmsford side. But it was an interesting session. And then they broke out into smaller groups for individuals to give their ideas, and looking forward to get the results of that meeting at our next advisory committee meeting. So, hopefully, we're looking at, the plan is to have something in the spring of 2013 as far as a final plan for the bridge. So, and now obviously that has a lot of impact, tremendous impact on future development on Middlesex Street, as well as on the opposite side in Pawtuckettville as well. So.
And Jerry, is there any time frame for an actual bridge?
Well, that question gets asked a lot at the meetings, and obviously funding is an issue.
Really,
And I can tell you that, a lot of resources and funding has been put into the study, which would lead you to think that at least there is serious intent to move forward with some sort of funding. But at this point in time, there is no funding in place, and it's not. We're not dealing with a timeline for the construction of the bridge. We're dealing with a timeline for the design of the bridge, and then obviously, once you would develop it, my understanding, they develop a design, and they would seek funding sources at that point.
Yeah. That would be appropriate.
I just didn't want to walk out without saying thank you for your
That's
consideration.
a good project, stay with it.
That's a very interesting idea.
Anything else?
I have one other item. A couple meetings ago, I had brought up, I had opened up a discussion about zoning board recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to do something about that. I would like to get some input back from the ZBA. Has planning staff brought this up to the ZBA at all?
We haven't really got much back. I can bring it up again at the next meeting.
Okay.
Try to get some feedback for you guys.
I would be, I think that the most valuable way to proceed would be for us to talk to them. Sit around a table and talk about what's going on and listen to what they have to say. Whether that means inviting them to one of our meetings and making it an item, whether that I would be willing to go to one of their meetings and have that conversation. But I think it would be good to exchange some ideas back and forth between our members and their members.
Okay, there's one other item I'd like to discuss, but off the record after adjournment, so I look for a motion to adjourn unless there's anything else to discuss.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us, and again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.